Hi everyone, this is a re-recording of the presentation I gave at this summer's BTS conference, which took place in Seoul and online in July 2022. My presentation is titled He Too Was a Tempter, Desire and Homoerotic Subtext in BTS's Blood, Sweat, and Tears. If you'd like to keep up with my future projects, presentations, video essays, you can find me on Twitter at Courtney Lazor or on Instagram at BTS_effect. And with that said, here is my presentation. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to my presentation titled He Too Was a Tempter, Desire and Homoerotic Subtext in BTS's Blood, Sweat, and Tears. BTS's 2016 title track, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, was a stark visual and thematic departure from the group's prior releases. The content produced for this song plunges the characters introduced in the Hwayangyeona storyline, or the Bangtan universe, into a dark world of temptation and conflict. With the song's fluid lyrics and the music video featuring a darker tone and only interactions between male characters, I wanted to explore this content more deeply as homoerotic subtext and how that subtext functions in this content. Moving into an overview of the content I'll be covering, Blood, Sweat, and Tears appears as part of the Wings album in the middle of the Reflection of Youth narrative timeline. As a whole, Wings is the portion of BTS's growth arc where their characters are meant to experience temptation, conflict, and exposure to the evil side of the world in order to fully grow up. As such, the Blood, Sweat, and Tears music video focuses heavily on these themes of temptation and conflict. For this presentation, I'll move through an analysis of the song's lyrics, the music video, and one stage performance to examine the subtext of this concept. First, to provide some context, homoerotic subtext refers to the suggestion of same-sex desire rather than an explicit display. There is an important distinction between homoeroticism and homosexuality, where the prior refers specifically to desire and can be temporary. Subtext is one way to indicate various forms of same-sex desire or attraction, and it can be particularly useful in time periods and cultures where people are forced to repress other sexual identities. For example, there has been homoerotic subtext in everything from pre-modern Chinese stories to novels from Victorian England to modern-day paranormal fiction. Some well-known examples of literature that use homoeroticism include The Picture of Dorian Gray, Fight Club, Interview with the Vampire, and the poetry of both Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. Homoerotic subtext can also be used to show a larger breadth of human desire in general. Briefly, it's worth mentioning how the Wings era drew inspiration from Hermann Hesse's novel Demian. Namjoon reads quotes from the novel in each of the Wings short films, as well as the music video and the comeback trailer. The important part here, beyond the quotes used, is how the novel is thematically in line with what BTS wanted to express in Wings. Demian tells the story of a young boy, Sinclair, who encounters the dark or evil world of temptation for the first time, standing in opposition to the world of light and goodness. The novel covers his growth process, especially as he encounters figures that make him question what he knows. The quotes used in Blood, Sweat, and Tears that I'll touch on later are one of the great signifiers of the subtext of BTS's content from this era. Now I'm going to look at the lyrics, music video, and stage performance for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. First, starting with the lyrics, I think it's important to note that the lyrics are genderless. This deliberate choice makes the song's themes more fluid and flexible, leaving room for more varied interpretations. The themes are focused on temptation and desire, as well as the suggestion of the forbidden, setting the tone for the rest of the content. The lyrics tell the story of a narrator who is encountering a tempter and succumbing to that temptation. From the very start, the narrator is surrendering, urging their tempter to take their blood, sweat, and tears, to take everything from them. The narrator also acknowledges pain and suffering as a necessary part of giving in to the temptation they're facing, but they're giving in anyway, even asking for what will hurt. There are also lines that describe the dichotomy of the tempter as someone with chocolate wings that are also the wings of the devil, a temptation that is bitter but sweet. The use of language like "it's okay even if it hurts," intoxication, prison, and poison set the darker tone of the song and imply the helplessness of the narrator in the face of temptation. Finally, the chorus admits and asserts over and over the narrator's deep desire to give in to his temptation. There are two music videos for this song, one for the Korean version and one for the Japanese version. Both are marked as BU content or Bangtan universe, but it's clear that the Korean video is more focused on the overarching themes, while the Japanese video focuses more on the Hwayangyeona story characters. As such, for this presentation, I will mostly be focusing on the Korean video. The Korean music video presents its themes in several ways. For example, the artwork Seokjin is focused on at the beginning is the fall of the rebel angels, depicting a biblical scene where the rebel angels are cast out of heaven, giving birth to the devil. The piece represents good versus evil and the fall into darkness. The clothing style for the BTS members and the set design are decadent. There's mention in the Wings concept book of how the members were styled to bring in elements of eroticism without being explicit. All the elements of design come together to create a concept that at that point in time was very different from BTS's usual work. By creating a darker tone, the stage was set for different subtext. Rather than the more homosocial cues in Hwayangana content, Blood, Sweat, and Tears offered several scenes based on homoeroticism. To start, the video features only male characters with 4 main pairs. These pairs are also seen in other Hwayangana content. In each pair, one character acts as a sort of tempter for the other, helping to bring that character over into the darker world. In the scene with Yoongi and Jimin, Jimin is holding an apple which could signify knowledge or temptation itself. Yoongi is holding a blindfold. It looks as if they're making a trade. Perhaps Jimin is trading his knowledge of the youthful world of light for the unknowns of the world of darkness. Jimin gives in to Yoongi's temptation because we later see him putting the blindfold on Jimin, who then struggles against it. Later in the video, when Jimin removes the blindfold, there is green running down from his eye. We know from the Wings concept book that green was intended to represent youth, so it's as if Jimin is bleeding away his youth, having transitioned into the next phase of growth. Similarly, Hoseok is the one to assist Taeyong's transition. He aims and shoots an arrow towards Taeyong, causing a paint splatter. The Wings concept book comments that this is showing the death of Taeyong's youth. However, arrows are also well-known phallic symbols. This scene symbolizes an older male character facilitating the rebirth of a younger male character into the dark world, and I will return to Taeyong's character in just a bit. At the beginning of the video, Jungkook is depicted upside down on a swing while holding a lollipop, both of which act as symbols of his youth. Namjoon is shown with a glass of absinthe and a candle. In the Korean video, Namjoon drinks the absinthe and later gives candle wax to Jungkook, which he consumes. This scene is charged with Jungkook's intense, suggestive stare, and the way it's shot suggests his stare is actually directed towards his tempter, not the audience, as if the camera, and therefore the audience, have been put in the place Namjoon would have stood when pouring the wax. Interestingly, in the Japanese video, Namjoon instead makes Jungkook drink the absinthe, and this scene is spliced with the shots of Jungkook eating the candle wax, which I take to be a stand-in for the absinthe. Absinthe could mean madness, or it could mean liberation. It's certainly symbolic of temptation, which Namjoon directs towards Jungkook. Jungkook is later shown without the lollipop and suspended in mid-air without the swing, his symbols of youth gone after he gave in to temptation, appearing to ascend. What these scenes have in common is each younger character experiencing some kind of transition into this new world, leaving the familiar youthful world behind. These transitions are all instigated or achieved via another male character. Further, none of the characters resist their tempters. On the contrary, in line with the song's lyrics, they are each giving in to the temptation willingly with no fighting back. The final pair to examine, and perhaps where the homoerotic undertones are most notable, is in the outlier pair of Seokjin and Taeyong. Taeyong is a clear embodiment of temptation, a character who made it through the fall and lost his wings or his youth and innocence in the process. Although he was previously paired with Hoseok in the Arrow, Taeyong is also shown dropping off of a balcony against another painting called Landscape with the Fall of Icarus, symbolizing his fall or descent into the world of temptation. But he doesn't so much fall as he drops of his own will, actualizing his desire to transition. Seokjin too is depicted as letting go of his youth when he releases the balloon he's holding. During this scene, Namjoon reads an important quote from Demian. Quote, "He too was a tempter. He too was a link to the second, the evil world with which I no longer wanted to have anything to do." It's this quote that sums up both the themes and the subtext of the video. As Sinclair in the novel refers to Demian as his tempter, so too is Taeyong's character fulfilling that role for Seokjin. We see this most clearly when Taeyong covers his eyes, which cuts to a scene with a large, winged statue that wasn't previously there, and Taeyong is gone. The statue is androgynous, or maybe supposed to be male, depending on your perspective, symbolizing Taeyong as the only character associated with wings. This association is strengthened as shots of Seokjin approaching and kissing the statue are spliced with shots of the scars on Taeyong's back, where his wings once were. Like the painting at the beginning of the music video, fallen angels become devils, and as Seokjin gives in to temptation by kissing the statue, his own descent is completed. At the end of the video, Seokjin's skin begins to crack, indicative of his own fall. Here too, Though Taeyong was his catalyst, Seokjin willingly gave in. Also of interest is one of the stage performances that plays off the homoeroticism established in the video. In their 2016 performance at the Mnet Asian Music Awards, BTS performed a set that began with Jungkook suspended in mid-air as Namjoon reads another quote from Demian that also appears in the comeback trailer for Boy Meets Evil. Quote, "My sin was not specifically this or that, but consisted of having shaken hands with the devil. The devil held me in his clutches. The enemy was behind me." This quote is directly played out at the end of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears performance, as Taeyong sits behind Seokjin and exposes the scars on his back. This scene is also charged. He embraces him intimately, one hand covering his eyes and the other placed on his chest, as his head rests against him. At the end, they are literally brought down into darkness as the lights dim and the stage descends. It's a quick wrap-up to the performance, but one that clearly communicates the underlying themes of the whole work. So what's the point of all this? Desire is genderless and fluid in the lyrics, but coded as explicitly male thanks to the homoeroticism and the presentation of the music video and stage performance. This divergence from the strictly heteronormative coming-of-age mainstream narrative functions as a quietly visible but significant extension of BTS's ongoing tendency towards social commentary. Blood, Sweat, and Tears could have easily used gendered lyrics or featured female counterparts in the video production. The story of the growth of young men and their encounter with temptation would still be valid if this were the case. But by subverting the narrative, coding desire and temptation between male characters, BTS's work is pushing back. It's a performance, of course, but it's not performative in the sense that homoeroticism is only employed for show. Many K-pop groups and even emo bands and rock bands have been criticized for queerbaiting and homoerotic displays on stage, often played for fan service. But here, it isn't fan service. The concept isn't the homoeroticism itself, but rather growth, conflict, and rebirth. And the work utilizes homoeroticism as a tool for telling a different story, one which needs no justification. Thanks so much for listening to my presentation. This is also a project I hope to keep working on and hopefully put somewhere more formally than a YouTube video. If so, I will be sure to share that on my social platforms, and I hope to see you in the next one.